guys, and welcome to another video on Nuance. My name is Matt, and I'm coming to you from a shop that I'm working on. I'm actually covered in in drywall dust because I'm doing a bunch of drywall work on this room behind me. It's part of a greater story of me trying to fix up a van. This doesn't relate to the van directly, but indirectly it does, which I want to take around the world in order to meet people and let them tell their stories in a very interesting, clean, professional environment. And there's a whole lot of things happening on that side of things, and I've been very busy trying to accomplish a bunch of different goals. I wanted to kind of continue on my Nuance channel, and I've actually tried to make this video a bunch of times. I have maybe 4 recordings of this specific thing, and this is my thoughts on China and their zero COVID policy and what they're doing now with regards to Shanghai and stuff. And if you guys don't know, Shanghai is still under lockdown. It's a key economic city in China, and it's gotten embroiled in this complete disaster. It's a total mess. And I know a lot of people, actually. I know some people who are in quarantine in Shanghai. I know some people who know people who are there. I know some people who are supportive of the methods and systems that are in China currently. And I know a bunch of people who are sick and tired of it in China. And I know a bunch of people who are outside of China that are only receiving this horrific videos of people being forced into quarantine centers, whether they're asymptomatic or not. Their pets back home are being starved to death. And it's just a total shit show. It's just a real mess. And it's been really, really sad for me to watch from the outside because I'm in America right now. And I know a lot of people are offering opinions, but not many people are offering solutions. So this is my opportunity to kind of put my 2 cents in. Why does my 2 cents matter? It doesn't really. I'm just nobody. I'm just got a little YouTube channel. But what I do have is some experience. So I've been in China for the first 2 years of COVID. In the very, very beginning of COVID, I actually flew back to America with Annie and Eva, and then I flew back to China because I saw how bad America was handling the beginning phases of COVID, and I was like, this is going to be a total disaster in America. It was going to be a shit show. And you know what? I was proved right. The country I'm in right now has 1 million less lives, 1 million less people breathing air, 1 million less people above ground because of the ineptitude of their response to COVID. And that is egregious. And that can't be forgotten either. I feel like today we have such short-sighted responses to just tragic stories because news is so sensationalized that we're being bombarded with crazy stories. And so, even the stories in Shanghai, as egregious as they are, will be forgotten, and they'll be woven into a greater narrative by whomever runs the media companies. We'll remember whatever people want us to remember, and we'll forget very quickly what people want us to forget. Sort of like the financial crash way back in the day, and how a lot of the policies of the financial crash have been reauthorized. Like a lot of the things that led to that crash that we put the brakes on, we took the brakes back off. We eased off on that because, the banks need to do what the banks need to go. Whatever, that's a side story. But it's just so funny how that works. But currently we're hearing the stories, and very tragic stories, of what's happening in China. China has, I think, successfully handled the situation for zero COVID. If that's what they wanted to do, they handled it very well up until, I would say, 6 months ago, or maybe even a little bit more, a little bit less than that. But let's just say 6 months ago, they had this policy of zero COVID, which meant that if any cases of COVID popped up within the mainland of China, the whole area would be locked down tight. Mass testing, quarantining, waiting until everybody was clear, codes would go from red or yellow to green, and then life would be normal. And that worked for most of the variants of COVID really well, really well. As a matter of fact, if China handled the virus like America did, China would have like 4 or 5 million less inhabitants. And maybe more if they handled it the same way America did, because the poverty in China is greater and more impoverished, I think, than the poverty in America. There's a big poverty problem in America. Trust me, I'm in Portland right now. There's a really big problem with homelessness and poverty. But the rural countryside of China, which is vast, has a larger amount of people that live very, very simply. And I think that those populations would be hard hit by a looser policy of living with COVID, such as America did. But let's think about this, though, and this is what I've been thinking, is that China had the zero COVID policy. They really knocked it out of the park for the first few years that COVID spread around the world. Well, it spread, the vaccines were created, vaccine programs were implemented, care systems were created, care systems were implemented, equipment and understanding of how to treat these viruses were implemented and created. And so, and we also learned demographics that were affected by the virus. Elderly, infirmed, overweight, all these sorts of different populations of people that had greater risk to the negative, obviously the worst effects of COVID, dying or having the need to be hospitalized in severe cases. And so I thought that zero COVID for China was really the right thing. If you looked at the whole world and you looked at China, I would say if you can do it, the Chinese method of zero COVID is the best. And there'll be people that will argue, the people that really, really hate on China, they'll argue that there was lies with regards to numbers of deaths in China, and that there was lying about that. Listen, I was in China for the first 2 years. You can't hide thousands of people dying, because those thousands of people know thousands of other people, and then everybody's got WeChat, and you can't silence that many people. You might, do I think that probably people died of COVID and were mislabeled? 100%. Do I feel like maybe some people died and it was some government conspiracy or something like that? Like maybe they fudged the numbers? I probably think so. I think that happened in America. I think that happened in every country. I think that there was all these kinds of movements, people not wanting to add to the numbers, people not wanting to, admit defeat, the virus's defeat of their population, and I think people certainly fudged the numbers. But I don't think it was statistically large in China. You can prove me wrong, but I don't think you can. And you might be able to find some stories here and there, but the whole point that you can find a few stories here and there show that there are a few stories and not hundreds of thousands or millions or thousands. I just don't think, and I have a video about this, I don't think China could have a system that was as comprehensive and as, in the West you'd say freedom stripping, where you all have a cue card, you all know where you're going, you all know if you're near somebody who's been infected, you all know if your area is infected, because they'll lock the whole place down. You can't do those sorts of things and then at the same time lie about deaths. The whole point is that everybody knows where these cases are. Shanghai's debacle right now and these cases that are spreading around China right now are a perfect example of why China didn't lie, because you would have this craziness a long time ago. I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands of cases that are happening, and China's going crazy to try to contain them. And you couldn't have that same thing happening. You understand what I'm saying? You just can't have the systems that I was in China under. It was like transparency personified. That was the only way that those systems would work. So I don't think that I think that China saved millions and millions of lives, millions of lives by doing zero COVID. And I think that the West wasted millions and millions of lives by not going zero COVID or not having unified systems. I mean, I'm in America. You go state to state, things were not unified. They were just insane. One place no masks, another place no masks. One place this, another place not, that. It was a total shit show here during the first couple of years. But now, the shit show moniker, I believe, needs to go back to China, because I always assumed that zero COVID was a strategy to buy time. Like I said, learn procedures, build facilities, train doctors, vaccinate, and develop systems to cater to the people who are the most susceptible to the worst symptoms and repercussions of getting a COVID variant. And then I see Shanghai, and I see people who are sending me stories from inside Shanghai, personal stories of inadequate places, no beds, no food, rotting food, dead pets, angry treatment, like brutal treatment from the people who are there tasked to care for you. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on over there? What did you do for all of the last few years? And let me add a caveat. Shanghai is a huge city, one of the biggest in the world. And not everybody are being put under the circumstances that these little clips are coming out about. Is it happening? Yes. Is it happening to one person? Yes. Is that enough? Yes. Like there's no apologizing, saying, well, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Trust me, if you're in that quarantine center and the rain is going through the roof and everybody asymptomatic is around you and all of a sudden you symptomize or you die or you have some horrible reaction to COVID because you're hanging around all of these asymptomatic people, you're not going to say, well, it is what it is. Human lives are being impacted in horrible ways, and there's no apologizing for that. What I'm seeing is that China, Shanghai, or certain areas of Shanghai were woefully unprepared. And not just that. I have friends in Suzhou, I have friends in Ningbo and family in Ningbo. I have friends in Shenzhen, I have friends all around China who are also sharing with me crazy stories of a lockdown procedure that you would have given leeway to if it happened 2 years ago, but it's happening today. Okay, all right, Matt, so what's your solution? There's a lot of people, especially in China, who are saying, it's okay, China's got this, we're doing this zero COVID thing, we value our aged, we value all of these people with mitigating factors and all of this stuff. And so what's your solution, Matt? And this is my solution. This is my solution. It's just me, just a little guy here. I'm not here to castigate China. I'm a big supporter of much of China. Like, I really love the time I had there, the people who I spent time with. I still want China in my life in the future. But I see this as sort of a turning point. And I see China really missing the ball here in general. And not just Shanghai, other places. So what do I think? I think that China should, I recently found out that one of the largest populations or demographics of people that haven't been vaccinated are old people, elderly. The most needed to be vaccinated, and they're not. So, number one, there needs to be a program to take care of these people in a vaccination environment. Like, get them vaccinated. Like 90s percentile. Like 90% of these people need to be vaccinated. And if they have some sort of condition that means that they can't be vaccinated because of some issue, then they need to be isolated. Or they need to understand the risks of living with COVID, like they have in America. I mean, I don't want to see anybody's lives lost. But we're living in a sort of a post-COVID world now. And the whole world is starting to open up, except for China, who is continuing to lock down. And most of the asymptomatic cases, or even the symptomatic cases, are very mild with Omicron. And sure, you've had the situation in Hong Kong, and sure, I understand that a lot of the cases in America that would have been the worst have died. And so there's a reasoning in China that's like, well, America lost all the people that they really needed to focus on protecting, or everybody's gotten it already, and we don't want to go down that road. And I understand that. But COVID ain't going nowhere. So you're going to have to start learning to live with it. And so what I would have thought, if I was China, was building much better quality facilities in every province. Have a COVID center built geographically according to populations. Big ones, everywhere. Building a staff of on-call nurses, doctors, and food people. Just a staff of people that are on call, ready to go to accommodate cases that need to go to the hospital. Like build an army. China can do it. Build an army of these people who are ready to take care of the people that need to be taken care of. Do a better job of allowing people to stay at home if they're asymptomatic. Listen, China already has a great system in place for finding the people who have COVID, for testing and making sure that they know. But if you're asymptomatic, you shouldn't be taxing a system that looks woefully unprepared anyways. Stay at home, self-quarantine, even the people around you. I think Chinese are very open to doing that. They're okay with it. They understand the implications. So you let these people quarantine on their own. They're going to be in much better circumstances than I've seen a lot of these quarantine centers have done to these people. And I think that people's patience are wearing thin in China in general. Not everybody. I'm sure that there is a very patriotic group of people who have seen the progress that China has made throughout COVID, and they're like, hoorah, we're doing a good job. But they're not going to last forever. And over time, people are going to start getting frustrated. And I think that they're already sort of there. So building facilities, teaching staff, getting materials, making sure that ventilators and all of that. I'm sure China has done that pretty well, but I've also seen, a lot of like ramshackle places with not enough materials, and I think that needs to be taken care of. Build care facilities for specific groups of people, like elderly and maybe special health cases. Build these facilities, kind of accommodate the potential for these people to have a ill effect from COVID. And then start opening up. You'll have the staff, have everybody vaccinated. Allow, if people really don't want to be vaccinated, I don't know, China doesn't really allow a lot of, dissension with regards to that. I think most people would make it a patriotic statement. There's another group of people that say China doesn't want to back off from zero COVID because they see it as a big win. It's a sense of nationalism, like we did a good job with zero COVID. But I think they could do the same national pride thing by saying, listen, all of us, we gritted our teeth, we got through zero COVID, we did a great job. You can consider yourselves heroes for your fellow Chinese men and women. Now we're moving on to phase 2. A zero COVID phase 2, which is an opening away from zero COVID. And we can only do this with the understanding that we have defeated the hardest phase, the unknowing phase of this pandemic. And so we're moving on. And I think what you could do is you're going to say, listen, we had to fight a war in the beginning, and now we're going to have to fight another war to live a normal integrated life with the world. And so here we are. We're going to do this and this and this. We all need to make sure that we're vaccinated. I know that we've been lax with regards to vaccinating the elderly, but now if we want to live more normal lives integrated with the world, then we're going to have to do this. Now, I've also heard that there's going to be steps taken after Shanghai, after the new Congress, I think, gets elected with Xi Jinping, that he might actually implement some of these opening measures after that. I've also heard interesting theories that this is Xi Jinping's opportunity to isolate China and get more of a stranglehold on the community and sort of rule somewhat by fear, saying, you don't want to be like the West, we need to form our own thing. Now, that's an interesting thing to say, fear, because there are people in China who really, really fear the virus. They fear the virus just like they did 2 years ago. And I think that the virus has changed, our care techniques have changed, our ability to tackle this virus has changed. And so I think that we should look at the current circumstances of the virus, the current impact it has on communities around the world, and not be as afraid as we were in the beginning phases of this thing. I'm being sort of interrupted. I've got to get back to work. That's kind of my thoughts. What do you think? Do you think I'm way off base? Do you think I'm in line with what should be happening, an opening up of China to the world, or do you think that the continuation of zero COVID is a good idea? I look forward to hearing your communication in the comment section below. Hope you're all doing well, and we'll talk to you later. Ciao.